and we can look back at it and be super critical of like, yeah, you know, like her, and again, we'll get into this, but like her body was not attainable, and like it was all very white, and there's all these other things, but just the fact that like she was trying to show the younger generation that like you can be more than just what is being told to you, like than what this hole that you're being put into. Yeah.
Welcome to The Scaries, brought to you by Racer Co. I'm Sky.
And I'm Talitha. We are proudly broadcasting from Treaty 4 territory. In each episode, we tackle alarming, inconceivable, questionable, shocking, and scary statistics relating to, impacting, and intervening with the lives of women and girls worldwide.
You'll hear the scary truth, take away tools, tips, and learn what you can do about it. And The Scaries is an opportunity to raise awareness, share resources, and use our voices, our collective voices as women and supporters of women to make some real change. The views on this podcast are solely our own opinions, and this is for entertainment purposes only. And please note that we will be sharing some content that may be triggering, so listen with caution.
As straight, cisgendered, white, able-bodied settler women, we are aware of the privilege that we have, and we want to use this platform to spread awareness about the scary reality women from around the world face in different life situations.
Why?
Because sometimes nothing is scarier than being a woman. So welcome to episode 5. We have pink drinks and we have a disco ball, and it is fully just like a big old party in here.
It's girls' night.
It is girls' night.
Every night's girls' night.
That's true. Every night is girls' night. So maybe it's time to do something about it.
Hint, hint, nudge, nudge.
Yes. Skylar, if you are not watching the video, Skylar is wearing one of our new sweaters that we have that is Barbie inspired. And it is, it's a really comfy sweater regardless, but it's like pink, and it says every night is girls' night. It's time. Which is like our call to action of it's time to do something about the inequalities, the inequities, the injustices that are happening in the world. So, I mean, if you don't know that about us, now you do, because that's what we like to talk about. So, Sky, why are we wearing so much pink, and why do we have a disco ball and all that stuff?
Well, if you have not guessed yet, we will be talking today about Barbie. We're really excited. It's a super fun topic, as I'm sure you're all super excited for as well. It kind of just like resurfaced, I would say, this past year with the movie that just came out. But we will be doing a Barbie series, talking about kind of the birth of Barbie all the way to the movie and how it's shaped and how it's changed things, and how even mindsets around Barbie have changed all along the way. So get ready for a wild ride. It's going to be super fun and lots of pink.
There's going to be so much pink.
Yes. So do you remember when you got your first Barbie?
I actually don't. I feel like Barbie has just always been like in my childhood. I don't actually remember the first Barbie that I got, because I was like 3 when I got it.
Yeah.
But I definitely have some like very special ones that I still remember, and I bought into, like, I needed all of the clothes and all of the things, like all of the accessories. Totally. My most favorite thing I got from Santa one year was the camper minivan.
Oh, yeah.
That you could like.
I feel like Eden has that. Like my daughter has that.
Like
right now.
When my son goes over to my parents' house and he plays with it, and I'm like, that's nostalgic, baby. Like
totally.
There's just like all the little camping anyways, that was like my favorite thing. So yeah, I don't remember the first one I had, but I don't know. Do you remember the first one?
Not the first one. I had an older sister, so I had a million Barbies before I even knew she's 5 years older, so she had Barbies galore. Like, I've known them before I could talk, kind of thing. And every kind of type of Barbie, all like Skipper, and what is the little one's name? Stacy, and there's a little Kelly. I loved Kelly, like the littlest one growing up. But no, I feel like we had them all. My favorite one was probably, I feel like I had a mermaid that like her bottom changed color. Like when you got her wet, like her fins changed color, and I don't know. So many cool things. So yeah, I would spend, me and my sister would spend hours playing with Barbies. I would tell you. It's it's so different now, I feel.
Obviously we're going to get into it, but like, I just feel like for our generation, especially, it was just something that you had. Every single person had a Barbie. Yeah. And it was just like a part of our culture and our society, which I think is obviously why we're going to do this episode and this series, because it's, I think, definitely shaped generations. So first, actually, we normally do this with guests, but I wanted to ask you some would you rathers.
Sure. Just
So,
me? Or are we going to
like, we're going to do it
other?
together.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll do them together. But like, we can ask the question. But I know that we just normally do this with guests. But I was like, this is a fun one.
I love would you rather.
Okay, so would you rather wear heels or Birkenstocks? This is like a shout out to the movie because obviously,
yeah, honestly, probably heels. I'm not a big Birkenstock person.
Oh, see, and I absolutely knew that you were going to pick that, and I'm absolutely the opposite. And I would totally pick Birkenstocks.
I don't have Birkenstocks. I have like knockoffs that are $5, but no.
Oh no,
they hurt my feet for some reason. I never wear them enough to like work them in to like mold to your feet.
Oh, see, and like heels hurt my feet.
I guess true, but I don't know. I just find I don't know. I feel different when I wear them.
There's like I think that there's that thing of like, it's, like makes you feel a certain way and like changes the way you walk and everything. There's like that quote from Barbie that says, if my shaped were feet like this, like if my feet were shaped like this, I would never wear heels. And I feel like that's my feet.
Totally.
They're not meant to wear heels.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not a comfort choice, but
no.
Mindset shift.
That's true. I like that. Okay. The next one is, would you rather have Barbie's influence in promoting STEM, so science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, promoting STEM education globally, or her impact in breaking gender stereotypes in various careers?
I feel like the last one, because it's all like various careers versus just one type of career.
Yeah.
And I feel like you could do that for STEM as well as other industries. And we talked about this in our last episode of like the gender pay gap and how there are like those male dominated careers like STEM are those ones that, Barbie's seen in, which is great.
Oh, yeah.
And from like before women were even in them, Barbie was
She was
a Barbie of that. So I feel like the second one, just because it's broader, would have a broader impact.
Okay. Yeah, no, I like that. I would agree too.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one is, would you rather work with Barbie to address and improve upon body image representation in dolls, or collaborate on initiatives to ensure cultural diversity and inclusivity in Barbie's product line?
You know what? I'm going to break the rules here, but I feel like you can do both.
Yeah.
Right? Like everybody has a body. So why can't we show different body types and also show different, skin tones and different looks? Like it doesn't, you know what I mean? You don't have to choose just body or just different ethnicities. Like why can't we do both at the same time?
Yeah.
It's 2020, soon to be 2024. Like
almost
we have the technology to make a variety of changes at the same time. So I'm going to push for all of it.
Okay, you're breaking the would you rather rules, but that
has to be all.
Okay, and last one is, would you rather support Barbie in her efforts to overcome criticism regarding unrealistic beauty standards by promoting a wider range of body types and features, or would you join her in advocating for more gender-neutral toy options?
Would you rather support her in her efforts to, what was the first
overcome criticism regarding unrealistic beauty standards? So essentially, like, she's obviously Barbie and all has faced a lot of criticism about the unrealistic beauty standards that exist. And so like kind of what the last question was like talking about different body types and all that kind of stuff. Or would you join her in advocating for more gender neutral toy options?
Probably the second one, because I feel like addressing criticism, well, her like the body type of Barbie is not accessible. It's not really attainable. It's actually not like physically impossible. It's impossible.
Yeah.
So like the criticism is warranted to be, I think. I mean, so you can address it all you want, but I think it's there. So I think it's more important for everyone that exists in this world to see someone that they can play with that represents who they are. And I think gender neutral Barbies is a great option that has never existed yet. So rather than beat a dead horse about the criticism, we'll go through that.
We are going to beat the dead horse.
Let's move on and get into the future.
Yeah, totally. Okay, that's fair. Thank you for playing my game.
Yeah,
my mind game.
You're up for the next one.
I know I am. I know.
So whether you want to admit it or not, Barbie has had a huge impact on women, especially us, and honestly in Western culture across the board. And it's undeniable that Barbie and her very essence has been welded into North American culture. But the question is, the $1 million question is her influence positive or negative? Or maybe both, but is there more than the other? We shall see.
And you are actually not going to get the final answer.
No, but
at the end of this episode.
You be your own judge. Yeah.
But we're going to present all of the options, not all of the things, but a lot of the research that we found over the next series, and you will, we can come to a conclusion together. But to understand where we are going and how we're going to get to that conclusion, we need to know where we've been. So as we always do, we're going to take a little historical look at Barbie and understand who she is and look at what women were facing when she was introduced to understand her impact. So, Barbie, full name, Barbara Millicent Roberts.
Millicent.
I think that's how you say
Millicent?
it. It kind of reminds me of that. I'm like, ooh, kind of like a little bit of a badass.
Yeah.
That's her full name. Is an 11-inch tall plastic doll with the figure of an adult woman. She was introduced on March 9th, 1959 by Mattel, which is a Southern California toy company. Ruth Handler, who is the co-founder of Mattel with her husband, Elliot, and then another gentleman, Harold Matson. They founded the company in 1945. So together they created Mattel, but Ruth actually spearheaded the introduction of the doll. So Ruth's primary inspiration for Barbie was her daughter, Barbara.
Just wait. I just thought of something.
Yeah.
So they've launched Barbie on March 9th, which is a day after International Women's Day.
Yeah.
I wonder if International Women's Day was even a thing back then.
Oh, I don't think so. I think it just came out in the last 10 years.
Okay, because I'm that would have been not why not on International
Yeah, no,
Women's
totally.
Day? But okay.
No.
I think marketing brain, come on, let's be strategic.
I know, as soon as I saw that, I was like, you guys have a missed opportunity. But also,
totally.
Maybe International Women's Day should have been on
in the
March
50s
9th.
Probably didn't exist. So yeah.
No.
Sense.
I think it was in the last 10 to 15 years, I want to say. No, 10 years probably.
Because it started with the
march
in
Washington.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Got it.
So I'm 5 years actually, maybe. I don't even know. Okay. Anyways, we haven't done our research on that.
No.
So
wait for that episode.
Yeah. So as I said, Ruth's primary inspiration for Barbie was her daughter Barbara, and looking at the dolls on the market at the time, Barbara could only play out being a mom or a caregiver, whereas Ruth's son's toys allowed him to imagine himself as a firefighter or an astronaut or a doctor. So leading up to the launch, Ruth was looking for a breakthrough product. She wanted to find something that was going to change the way girls looked at themselves. So the answer, she thought, was an adult doll that would inspire girls the same way action figures of firefighters and soldiers encourage boys. Barbie was made to plug a gap in the toy market. I mean, really, it came down to capitalism and selling things. But even above that, Ruth wanted to create a doll for girls who were too old for the popular baby dolls at the time and who wanted someone inspiring to look up to. Ruth said that the one-dimensional paper fashion dolls Barbara played with in the 1950s limited her imagination, while the three-dimensional fashion dolls, quote unquote, were built like children and would have looked ludicrous in a prom dress.
Yeah,
absolutely ludicrous. Wearing little babies wearing big prom dresses. So Ruth actually famously once said that little girls dream of being curvaceous, dreamy, and exciting, and they want someday to have gorgeous clothes, be chic, and look like movie stars. Which, I mean, sure. Yeah. That's your dream. That's amazing. I don't know if you should say everyone wants that, but
it's true.
That's where she came from.
General.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So although Barbie is aimed at children, the inspiration from the toy was very adult oriented. So Lily was a flirtatious gold digging sex pot, some call a call girl, who originated as a cartoon character in a Western German newspaper. So with her sexual banter and revealing outfits, Lily hugely became popular, and in 1955 was made into a plastic doll and was sold in stores. And it was actually intended as a risque gag gift for men, but the dolls soon became popular with children. Yeah. We will actually cover this in another part of this series, but the impact of this sexualization of women's bodies to young girls likely, I think, set us up for a lot of failure.
Totally. So this Lily was before Barbie.
Lily was before Barbie, and she was actually modeled after Barbie was modeled after Lily. Yeah. And then there was I had it in these notes and then I cut it because it was long, but I'll just give you the brief story that they actually sued Mattel, the company who created Lily.
For having the original idea.
Yeah, for the likelihood, the likeliness of it. And then Mattel ended up just buying the rights to this Lily doll. And then I think it went away, but yeah. So yeah, she was modeled and if you look at side by sides, and we can include it here, side by sides of Lily and of Barbie, they're very, very, very similar. And so naturally a not suitable for work doll backstory wouldn't have convinced American parents to whip out their wallets. So Barbie was actually introduced as a teen model instead. That was her first job. So Ruth shared that she wanted Barbie to be a blank canvas for children to play with. She said, when we began sculpting Barbie's face, I insisted that it not be too pretty and contain too much personality. I was worried that if she were too glamorous, little girls wouldn't be able to identify with her. And while I understand the that mentality, having too much personality.
I don't understand what that is. Like, how do you physically make too much personality?
I don't know.
Too many facial expressions? I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know. She looked too confident and had too much personality.
Interesting.
So Ruth actually consulted with a psychologist during Barbie's development. In 1958, so the year before Barbie came out, they conducted a market research study, and after interviewing 191 girls and 45 mothers, one of the findings was that the mothers criticized Barbie for having too much of a figure, quote unquote. So Mattel circumvented this problem, however, by advertising Barbie directly to children via television. Mattel, in fact, ended up sponsoring Walt Disney's Mickey Mouse Club program in 1955 and became the first toy company to broadcast commercials to children. So they were like, I hear what you're saying, Mom, but we're just going to go past you.
We don't care.
So the psychologist actually conducting the study suggested enlarging the doll's breasts, but also downplaying her sexual overtones to appeal to mothers. So they were like, she needs bigger boobs.
To appeal to mothers.
Yeah.
What?
No, to downplaying the sexual overtones to appeal to mothers. So bigger boobs, but don't make her so sexual. That was what they came down to.
Totally contradictory, but okay.
Yeah. And then actually there was another part of the research, and I didn't include it, but it was then the Barbies launched and the boobs were too big. And so Ruth had to go to this really difficult meeting with Mattel, and they went to, and they were like, boobs have to be smaller. So then she was like, oh, fine. And so then she called the Japanese manufacturers and was like, you got to make the boobs 40% smaller. And then the quote was, and then she went to her hotel room and cried. It's okay.
Wow.
Yeah. So anyways, the battle of the boobs
what a shame.
it was a big thing. But since her launch, actually Barbie became a must-have toy for young girls in the US and beyond. And according to a 1962 article by Time, Barbie appeals to little girls because it looks grown up and to their parents because it is inexpensive. I think it was $3.50 to buy a Barbie back then. Handler said that she got letters from mothers grateful to them for getting their daughters to be more conscious about style and good grooming. Important things in the 60s. Have you ever actually seen a picture of the original Barbie?
I think so. I visualize this girl in the black and white bathing suit, and the glasses or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we'll include a picture of it on the blog and also put it in the video here if you're watching. But girlfriend was over it. She side-eyed her way to the bank with her black swimsuit and 22p smash and said it looks like her eyes are just off to the side and
closed.
So saucy. I was like, girl, I love it.
Too much personality.
Yeah, that was a little too much personality, I think. But anyways, so that's kind of where she originated, a little bit of her backstory. I mean, there's a whole book on her backstory, and won't get into that, but let's just a little dive into it.
Yeah. So before we get into the intricacies of how Barbie's launch and introduction and came into Western culture and how it was revolutionary, we want to review what it was like to be a woman and girl. So what were the people going through who were first introduced to Barbie back in the late 50s? So at that time, women's movements or feminist movements during the period of 1960 to 1985 were often referred to as the second wave feminism. They included campaigns in support of peace and disarmament, equality in education and employment, birth control, and an end to violence against women. All things we're still fighting.
Still going. I was going to say that sounds like right now.
Movements also tackled women's representation in everything from advertising to dress, and insisted on respect for non-mainstream identities and demanded reform of government and law. So again, great.
Still happening though. Yeah.
Yep. In the aftermath of World War II, the lives of women in Western countries changed dramatically. Household technology eased the burdens of homemaking, life expectancies increased dramatically, and the growth of the service sector opened up thousands of jobs, not dependent on physical strength. So women were able to finally enter the workforce. So despite these socioeconomic transformations, cultural attitudes, especially those concerning women's work, and legal precedents still reinforce sexual inequality. So there still was women's work versus men's work, and the majority was men's work when it was outside the house. The beginning of the 1960s marked the start of the women's liberation movement, though. So while the first wave of feminism of the 19th and early 20th centuries focused on women's legal rights, like the right to vote, the second wave of feminism of the women's rights movement touched on every area of women's experience, including politics, work, the family, and sexuality.
Like a whole holistic look at a woman's life. Yeah.
So now we can participate as an equal recognized citizen. We can vote, but now, okay, let's get into the nitty gritty of the day to day. So when we look at that, it's consistently largely white, well-educated women who fought for reforms such as paid maternity leave, rape crisis centers, and changes to abortion laws. Women also fought to strengthen and control their own bodies during this period. They had two outstanding components that they focused on. First, the demand for birth control and abortion, and second, the rejection of harassment and violence. So those were kind of the areas, but the people fighting for this were largely white, well-educated women who knew about these things in a deeply, I would say, like an educated way.
Probably and probably also the women who were allowed a platform to speak about things too.
Yeah, and they had the time to actually go out and do this versus some others. Yeah, they're working or they're, at home and they have, can't get away. They can't get a nanny or they can't get in, whatever. So yeah, the privilege was still alive and well then. So some noteworthy things that happened over in the 1960s include Indigenous women won the right to vote in federal elections. That's in 1960. This right was granted to many other Canadian women in 1918. Oh, so they had 30 years later, 40 years later, for Indigenous women. And this was then they could vote without having to abandon their Indian status. In 1964, Canadian married women were allowed to be jury members. This was also a new thing. The main reason women were kept out of the jury pools in the past is that they were considered the center of the home, which was their primary responsibility as caregivers, so we can't take them away. No. They were also thought to be too fragile to hear the grisly details of crime and too sympathetic by nature to be able to remain objective about the accused offenses. So
too many feelings,
too emotional to really just be... Yeah, unbiased. In 1964, we also saw that women were finally entitled to open a bank account without obtaining their husband's signature. In 1964. Wow.
You're allowed to, the privileges are amazing.
So you could have had a job before then, technically, but you couldn't open a bank account.
By yourself, yeah. You would need
without your husband's signature.
It would be like a joint account, essentially.
So what happens if you weren't married?
I would assume probably a father.
Dad,
or a parent. I don't know.
In the States, it was not until the Equal Credit Opportunity Act of 1974, so almost 10 years later, that it became illegal to refuse a credit card to a woman based on her gender.
That's crazy. Kate, also, did you know, so talking about having ownership of things and being able to have a bank account, the Barbie Dream House came out in 1962. Before, which means women can buy homes. That's the thought process. But that was 2 years before in Canada, anyways, women could have their own bank account. So even that is Barbie was way ahead of her time in that way.
Totally.
Yeah.
Interesting. In 1965, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission was launched in the U.S., allowing women to gain access to jobs at every corner of the U.S. economy, which is awesome. And employers with long histories of discrimination were required to provide timetables for increasing the number of women in their workforces. So that's great.
I mean, that's
real progress.
Really great, but was there actually any follow-up on that? Because that was 1965 and we just last episode
we're not quite there yet in many areas.
I
don't know. The Royal Commission on the Status of Women in 1967 was chaired by Florence Bird, who and this was created in Canada. So this was the Royal Commission of the Status of Women. So that was a new thing. In 1969, the Canadian Criminal Code was amended to legalize the distribution and information on methods of contraception and their prescription, as well as sexual acts between two consenting members of the same sex. So that was 1969. Was amended to legalize basically gay marriage and contraception.
No, not even gay marriage. Marriage was like in
Sexual acts. Sorry,
yeah, you could just be just sexually
allowing
active
that before that it was a crime. Wow.
But I still think even like well into the 80s and even early 90s, it was still being like people were still being arrested and like losing jobs and like different things for being gay. But anyways, that's another story.
Yeah, another episode.
Another story for another day.
In 1970, they released the report from the Royal Commission of the Status of Women, which revealed disturbing findings on the discrimination faced by women. Interesting. This one isn't specifically women specific, but in 1970, the Canadian Psychiatric Association removed homosexuality from its list of mental disorders. In 1970.
As a mental disorder, too.
50 years ago.
Wow.
53, but like, come on. And then in 1973, in its controversial ruling of Roe versus Wade, the United States Supreme Court legalized abortion. Inducing an abortion was a crime in Canada until 1988, when the Supreme Court of Canada struck down the law as unconstitutional. Since then, abortion has been legal at any stage in a woman's pregnancy, and abortion is now publicly funded as a medical procedure under the Canadian Health Act.
So, which is so funny because obviously I know we're going to talk about it, but like Roe v. Wade has since been overturned.
Right. Yeah.
But so although Canada was so far behind, not so far behind, but like far enough behind, like 15 years ish behind that, but now it's just considered healthcare in our country.
Yeah.
Like having access to abortion and all that kind of stuff is like still an issue, but like you can just essentially go to the doctor as you would to go get like a flu shot or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So 50 years later it was overturned and all that.
Ugh,
yeah. Insane.
Anyways, so that's just kind of like setting the tone and understanding the context of the political atmosphere, the like social things that women were going through at the time. That Barbie was introduced to the world. And I mean, it's really wild to see how far we've come, but how far we still have to go, unfortunately. So with that context, we want to talk about one of the most important aspects of Barbie and one of the main reasons she was created. So Ruth intended for Barbie to be a doll that could provide little girls with aspirational imaginative play outside of being a wife and a mother, as we mentioned in the introduction. While Barbie's first job, a teen fashion model, might not have been a particularly empowering one, Ruth intended Barbie as a vehicle for little girls to imagine themselves working outside the home. So since that first job as teen fashion model in 1959, Barbie has had more than 250 careers. And true to Ruth's desire to inspire young girls, Barbie has often been way ahead of her times. So, for instance, in 1965, some 13 years before women were admitted to the astronaut corps at NASA, Mattel introduced an astronaut Barbie. And in 2022, 2 Barbie dolls were actually taken to the International Space Station as part of an effort to encourage girls to pursue careers in STEM and other male-dominated fields.
Okay, I have 2 thoughts on this. First, I always felt Barbie was a mom. I didn't think she was a teen. And how is a teen doing all these jobs? Doesn't she go to school?
I know, actually, reading the like teen fashion model thing was interesting to me. I mean, like now I understand it because like she was appealing to young girls, so still wanted it to keep it like,
well, yeah, like maybe not a mom, but like a
that like
mother's age, like because she's tall, right? She was always the tallest, and then there was like Skipper and all the other ones. So I always assumed she was like the oldest female figure in whatever situation. But yeah, a teen. Then I'm like, how is she doing all these things, going to the moon? And girlfriend, she must be super smart. Just got her GED and moved on.
She moved right on. She was like, I'm gonna go tackle the world,
I guess.
Yeah, in my heels.
Yeah, well, and then on the point about the moon, that she was going to the moon when women couldn't even get credit cards.
Yeah,
like it's just wild, but also super progressive, which is great. But
yeah, and I think you need that kind of like, and although that there are issues with how Ruth and like her leadership approached things with Barbie, being such a visionary in that way was truly incredible for young people at the time. Like, and we can look back at it and be super critical of like, like her, and again, we'll get into this, but like her body was not attainable and like it was all very white and there's all these other things, but just the fact that like she was trying to show the younger generation that like you can be more than just what is being told to you, like than what this hole that you're being put into. Yeah. So some of the other jobs that Barbie had. Barbie became a surgeon in 1973 when less than 10% of doctors were women. She also served in the military, joining the U.S. Army in 1989. And 3 years later, she became a sergeant in the Marine Corps. Nice. She just keeps on moving up. Yeah. Like doesn't even care about ranks here. Did you actually know that one of the jobs Barbie never had was being a mother?
Really?
That was never a job. Despite requests for a mom Barbie, Mattel has refused because Ruth envisioned the doll as representing the period before parenthood.
Interesting.
Yeah. But one really big red flag in this inspiring history is that Barbie's 1960s empowerment largely addressed a white middle-class woman who sought her own money and agency outside the home through a career. So it's, again, like I said, it's a very, very specific group of people that they were looking to serve.
Yeah. And like, why couldn't she be a mom and have the jobs? Right?
Well, also like, that too.
Yeah. Interesting.
So since the 1960s, Barbie's relationship to contemporary feminism has been less clear. 1970s Barbie didn't make as many new strides as 1960s Barbie did. But in 1992, Barbie joined the Woman of the Year Year of the Woman, not Woman of the Year. She joined the Year of the Woman in response to the Anita Hill hearings by running for president for the first time. And then 1990s Barbie also became an Air Force pilot, a naval officer, a Marine Corps sergeant, as I mentioned, an Army medic, a firefighter, a dentist, a soccer player, a NASCAR driver, a baseball player, a WNBA player, and an airline pilot.
Whoa.
Like, what did you do in the last couple years?
That's awesome. Honestly, I feel like a lot of my favorite thing about Barbie was her outfits, like having all the accessories and all the different choices to like be whoever you want to be at any time.
Yeah.
Which is the best part, I thought. And the hair, always had the like spa nights of the hair.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, she was definitely building her resume in the 90s for sure.
I thought, I was doing things and like maybe felt a little bit of accomplished. And then I was like, girlfriend was a NASCAR driver, a baseball player,
everything you can ever think of. Yeah. So let's talk about who, like, there's no women without the people behind or beside or alongside her. So let's talk about her girl gang.
Yes. Okay. So how about I start it off and then I'll just pass it off to you and then you can finish it. Okay. So a girlfriend for sure, a girl gang member, but we're going to start off with Ken of the situation. One of my favorite quotes that I found while doing this research was in 1961, Mattel brought out Barbie's ultimate accessory, her boyfriend Ken. It's like, what? He's just arm candy.
Yeah.
So full name, Kenneth Sean Carson. I didn't even realize that he had this like full middle last name thing. He was introduced as a boyfriend to Barbie after many people asked and begged for Barbie to have a man to hang out with, which I think is maybe telling of the time. But on a whole, actually, other side, so Barbie and Ken are obviously the name, like Barbie is the name of Ruth's daughter and Ken is the name of Ruth's son. But like imagine what it was like to be the Barbie in the house. Like you're like the hero and like everything else. And then
poor Kenneth, like her son.
He's just named like, the Barbie, the accessory. I was like, poor guy. Okay, but also this is just jumping ahead like a half a century. But did you know that in 2004, Barbie and Ken broke up?
How do we know that? What happened?
So at the time, the vice president of marketing at Mattel said that Barbie and Ken feel it's time to spend some quality time apart. Like other celebrity couples, their Hollywood romance has come to an end, but the individual indicated that the duo would remain friends.
Interesting.
Yeah. So she later dated Blaine, an Australian surfer, and I was like, "Who the heck is Blaine?" But then, after Ken underwent a makeover that included spending some time in the gym, because that's, I think, what everyone wants is just for the man to bulk up a little bit.
Again, with the arm candy. It's all about that.
Yeah. He ended up winning Barbie back in 2011. Yeah. I had no idea that they broke up. I was like, why is this not international news?
Well,
like the biggest couple of the century.
Well, and because
You know?
Ken was always like, we'll talk about Barbie and then all her like sisters and all her friends, but usually, like, I don't know why, I just thought everyone was Barbie, but Barbie had different skin colors and different hair and whatever, but they were all just Barbie.
Yeah.
Because we still called them Barbies, even if they were like a different name. So I don't know why. And then Ken, I'm like, I just assumed all the boy Barbies were Kens.
They are.
Except for like Blaine
Alan.
and
well, except for Blaine,
Alan.
I don't know, and Alan, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. Weird. Interesting.
Yeah. It's the like understanding the intricacies of like who Barbie is and then who are like all of the pals who like I also thought were Barbie. Yeah, it's very complicated.
Yeah.
So with talking about friends, in 1963, Mattel added Barbie's best friend Midge. So let's talk about Midge for a second. Full name, Margaret Midge Hadley Sherwood, was created in 1963 as Barbie's plain Jane best friend. We all need one of those, apparently. Far less glamorous than Barbie, Midge was intended to represent a more average, accessible American girl. For most of her existence, Midge led a quiet, unremarkable life with her beau, Alan, whose packaging described him simply as Ken's buddy. I mean, if Ken is just the accessory, what is the accessory to the accessory? Like, the plastic pair married in 1990 and enjoyed a very brief moment in the spotlight with a wedding party set released the same year. But Midge and Alan's marriage opened up new avenues for the dolls, such as parenthood, which is something that Ruth didn't want for Barbie herself. She pushed it onto the sidekicks. So Mattel released the Happy Family set in 2002, featuring a pregnant Midge with infant accessories and a 3-in-1 crib, table, and cradle, according to the box.
I think I remember that, actually.
Okay, I don't
When was this? The 90s?
1990.
Okay, well,
no, sorry. In 2002.
Okay, yeah, I totally remember.
They got married in 1990.
Yeah, no, I totally remember that. Was she, I want to say, a redhead, Midge?
Yeah. She has like red hair.
Yeah. I totally remember her then.
So with this gift set, girls have everything they need to play out the arrival of a new baby, is what the box read. And perhaps taking the Happy Family concept just a step too far, Midge had a detachable, magnetized pregnant belly that could fit her accompanying plastic infant. And it's like a kind of a graphic image. Like it looks like one of those like dolls that you would like dissect things. You just take off the belly and take out the baby. It's interesting. Midge's delicate condition sparked immediate backlash. So many real-life parents worried that Midge would first promote teen pregnancy or even single motherhood. God forbid. And according to the Associated Press, Walmart pulled pregnant Midge from shelves in December of 2002 due to the controversy, because people were like, how dare you talk about teen pregnancy and single motherhood?
Is she still a teen though? Like, don't they ever grow up? Or are they stuck in teendom forever?
I think she got married. She got married, yeah. I don't actually know. I think that just because like she was pregnant and little girls play with her, that it was like once you start, you could have babies when you're a teenager, which again, but Mattel never actually returned Midge or her baby to the doll lineup. So how traumatic is that? Also, you get pregnant out of wedlock or maybe in wedlock, but like your character gets killed off.
I like Midge. I don't remember them being too many like redhead Barbies either. I feel like, and I totally remember her because my sister was a redhead, so she always got to have the redhead Barbie.
Okay, I don't remember Midge, but like
now I want to look her up. I feel
we'll include a picture in the blog. Also,
I hope she's a redhead. Otherwise, I don't know what.
No, she totally is. She absolutely is. Yeah.
So following our plain old friend Midge, Mattel launched Barbie's little sister Skipper in 1964. And Skipper, for background, is Barbie's little sister. So I totally remember Skipper. The first Skipper doll was released in 1964, like we said, created as an 8-year-old character. So 8. I always thought Skipper was like 13 or something, not 8. But I mean, anyway. And like Barbie was, I thought, like 25 maybe. But anyway.
Yeah, I feel like there's like the time space continuum in Barbie world does not exist.
Skipper had a notably more youthful appearance than her big sister Barbie, and Mattel decided that even plastic is not immune to the ravages of puberty. So in 1975, the company released Growing Up Skipper. I feel like I didn't remember that because I wasn't alive. But I remember anyway, different version of Skipper in my brain. If you thought Pregnant Midge was the apex of the weird Barbie anatomy, Growing Up Skipper blows the plastic baby out of the water. So this situation, this I think is a little weirder, to be honest. Yeah. This technological marvel of a doll grew taller and grew boobs when you twisted her left arm. Rotating her arms backwards reverse the changes, so it's like
I love
of,
that.
The Judy Blume book.
Oh yeah, I'm like trying to make bigger boobs. Yeah. God, that's totally it.
But yeah, Growing Up Skipper's packaging described her as transforming from a cute little girl to a tall, curvy teenager, and the commercial called it 2 dolls in 1.
Oh, a 2-for-1 deal.
Man, despite controversy, Mattel created another version of the doll concept called Growing Up Ginger. Maybe I'm thinking of Ginger in 1976. And the company eventually discontinued the Growing Up dolls in 1977 because Skipper continued to develop subsequent versions of the doll. Super Teen Skipper and others created in 1979 still had the doll's aged up appearance with. So that's what I'm saying.
That's,
I felt like Skipper was older because 8 is like little girl. Like that's what grade? Like 3?
Yeah, so I think they like obviously started her at age 8, and then they did the Growing Up doll, and then they just like kept her. She was like she after her arm was
teen.
Gone.
Yeah, totally.
Her arm was pumped up. Yeah.
So moving into the rest of the crew, there's actually more diversity where we start to get into shifting gears and start to talk about it. So, or a lack thereof.
So I think it's actually important now that we talk about the doll test, which is something that I only learned about when doing this research. But it's pretty infamous. So the doll test was conducted by Black psychologists, Drs. Kenneth and Mamie Clark in the 1940s, and it was an experiment aimed at studying the psychological effects of segregation on Black children in the States. This test, conducted on 160 children, consisted of a sheet of paper on which they were outlining drawings of a leaf, an apple, an orange, a mouse, a boy, and a girl. So these kids were given a box of crayons, including the usual assortment of, red, yellow, blue, whatever. And then also black, brown, white, and tan were given to the child. So then each child was asked to color the objects and the mouse in order to determine whether they had a stable concept of the relationship of color to the object. Mm-hmm. So then if they, did the apple was red or green or whatever, and the mouse was like brown or gray, then they could move on to the next portion of the test. So if the child passed, as I said, they were then told, for example, color this little girl the color that you are. After this request was complied with, the child was then told, now color this little boy, color him the color you like little boys to be. So then if they was a little boy, they would say, color this little boy the color that you are, and then color this little girl the color that you like little girls to be.
How old are these kids?
They were definitely younger than like 12 or 13. Like they were like young kids. I can find it and it's in our resources, but
we'll find it.
They were young. So anyways, there were other tests that were conducted. So after that kind of original one into like for over 14 years. And the next test used actually several physical dolls. And so these were all baby dolls, and they were all identical except for skin color. And these Black children, who were aged 3 to 7, were asked to identify which doll they preferred. The results showed that a significant number of Black children preferred the white dolls over the Black dolls. Moreover, many of them associated positive characteristics with the white dolls and negative attributes to the Black dolls. This experiment had highlighted the damaging impact of racial segregation and discrimination on the self-esteem and perceptions of children, revealing the internalization of societal biases and racial prejudices among young Black children due to the prevailing segregation and segregated environment. The findings of the doll test played a pivotal role in the Supreme Court's decision to end racial segregation in schools in the landmark case Brown v. Board of Education in 1954. So this is even pre-Barbie. And then with this revelation of the study, the surge of Black girl representation became of utter importance to improving the self-worth of Black girls across America.
Wow. I did not. I've never heard of that. And honestly, I'm glad that happened. And so early, like,
yeah.
I mean,
In the
it could have been
1940s,
earlier, but yeah, in the 1940s. For them to care. I'm actually surprised that they care that much about women and their self-worth and just like, oh, they just have mental problems. Like, let's
they're always
that.
Yeah.
But no, like, this is serious and let's change something systematic. So wow.
Yeah.
That really surprises me, but I'm happy about it. Complaints about Barbie's lack of diversity extended beyond body type, which we'll get into the next episode even more. But many noted that Barbie's world was overwhelmingly white, while her first Black friend, Christy, I remember Christy, debuted in 1968, and it wasn't until 1980 that the Black Barbie doll went on sale. That year also saw the debut of a Latina version, Barbie. In 1967, Mattel launched the first African-American Barbie doll named Colored Francie. What? Colored Francie was her name?
Yeah, because she was the colored version of a regular Francie, I think.
What? Why?
Because it was the 1960s and that was the best they could do.
So just let me back up here. So the first Black friend, Christy, was in 1968. So the one before Christy was in 1967. That was Colored Francie.
She was just like the colored version of the regular Francie. Okay. And then the official new friend, Christy, was in 1968. And then in 1980s, they were like, we're going to give Barbie, Barbie. A little bit of a makeover and introduce diversity.
Okay. Now I'm getting it all. Piecing it together.
Yeah.
So the Colored Francie, like Lisa said, was based on a white Francie. So this doll lacked.
But was Francie called White Francie, or was she just called Francie?
Let's guess. This doll lacked the distinct African American characteristics other than dark skin. She had the exact same body and facial characteristics and everything as Barbie. In 1968, Mattel then released Christy, like we said, considered the first African-American doll in the Barbie range. And during the 1960s and early 1970s, there was a shift in societal awareness regarding racial diversity and representation. So critics started advocating for more authentic and inclusive representation of different races and ethnicities across all toys and media. Barbie's friend Christy was criticized for not representing them African cultural body image and showcasing only one skin color tone, and her features were seen to characterize white standards of beauty. But later, Mattel released Black Barbie, and it still had Caucasian features. So they weren't really getting the hint to really make this Barbie authentic.
I actually read that they just took the cast of white Barbie and were like, just put some darker skin tone in the plastic, and that's what they just took a white face, which again is missing those features that make people unique.
Yeah. So in 1988, the first Latina Barbie doll was released, like we mentioned, named Teresa. She wasn't explicitly Latina, though, because her features were supposed to be ambiguous, so she could pass for Italian and Latina. So originally, it was 1983 Spanish Barbie, that face or that sculpt, and later implemented a unique face sculpt from there. So they really were just trying to get as many faces in one Barbie as possible, which is weird because she was every single career under the sun. So you'd think she could be every single racial identity, but
that's just so weird.
Gotta save some pennies.
They were like, this is where we're going to cut it off. She can be an astronaut and, a NASCAR driver, but she must be white to do all those things.
So it wasn't until 1999 that finally it was established that she was Latino because of her last name being revealed as Rivera.
I hate that they feel like they can get away with, just putting and we're going to talk about this in a second, but just putting a fancy dress on somebody and being like, this is the Latino experience because she's wearing some very specific cultural piece of identity. I don't know. It's such a cop-out. But.
Oh, totally. While Mattel made strides in the 1980s in terms of empowerment and diversity with Black and Hispanic Barbies, the company's attempt at addressing other diverse ethnicities and cultures was more uneven. So in 1981, Mattel released the first East Asian Barbie as part of the Dolls of the World collection. However, the company initially called her Oriental Barbie.
Ooh.
Don't they learn? Like, come on. They keep doing this. No. The Dolls of the World collection ended in 2014, included dolls from over 50 countries from every continent. But the dolls were always dressed in their traditional garb.
Right.
Of course.
Yes.
Which was sometimes stereotypical and inaccurate. Arguably, releasing these racially and ethnically diverse dolls with strictly international dolls served to other certain races and ethnicities within the U.S. market. So while the Dolls of the World collection addressed the global markets outside of the United States, it did not depict the diverse ethnicities and cultures that lived within the United States. And the American children playing with American Barbies, in other words, who had to wait until 2017 for a hijab-wearing Barbie, and 2023 for an Asian American Barbie. What?
Yeah.
2023?
Well, like, because they had these like fancy
their traditional
but instead of just being like a regular human who happened to be Asian American or happened to be like wearing a hijab, but they were also an astronaut or like they were also these things, like, so that I think that's the most interesting thing for me when we talk about diversity in Barbie is that everything was so othered. So it was like every other race was considered like a collector's item.
Totally.
Like you could collect like Kenyan Barbie and she was wearing like traditional Kenyan garb, and you could collect like Chinese Barbie and she was wearing, but it's like for Chinese little girls and boys and whoever plays with dolls and like Kenyan little girls and boys, it's like they don't necessarily wear that all the time, and like they also want to play soccer and they also want to like
be in the NBA
and
all the like things that Barbie was doing.
So it's interesting. It's like the diversity aspect, and we'll talk about it a little bit more, but I think it was just like important to cover that history of where we started.
Totally. Very interesting. So many pieces.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we've talked about the state of the world when she was launched and all the the political and social climate for women when she was introduced. We shared a bit about her jobs and her friends and her boyfriends.
Her accessories.
Accessories. So what else is there? Well, this is going to be a large series, like we said. So this is just step 1 of 4, because Barbie is huge. She has had an enormous impact on our society in so many ways, whether we think about it, we've taken a second to think about it or not. But the more we say these things, the more I'm like, wow, this does like the impact. So in part 2, we're going to talk about the fallout of Barbie, the bad, the ugly, and the downright atrocious pieces of it.
It's going to be really good. It's not fun to see these things, but like it's fun to read about it and like understand how the like, again, political societal environment totally shifted and like created this like almost like rage against Barbie and like everything she stood for and everything. Anyway, so those are things we're going to be talking about. As always, we will include these scary statistics and the scary stories that relate back to Barbie and her impact on us. But until then, follow us on Instagram at RaiseHerCo and at scaries.podcast and on TikTok at RaiseHerCo. Remember that change starts with awareness and action. Thank you for being a part of the Scaries community and making this world a little less scary to exist as a woman. Bye.